Coming up next is the Dr. Kim Taylor Show. Here's your chance to talk about what matters to you. Although you'll receive helpful advice from Dr. Kim, remember this is not to be construed as any form of psychotherapy, diagnosis or treatment, and cannot replace a therapeutic relationship with a mental health professional. You can reach Dr. Kim by calling 564-1290 or 866-564-1290. You can also listen live on the internet at drkimtaylorshow.com. Now, here's Dr. Kim.
Welcome to our Thursday afternoon program. This is becoming quite a habit for me now and part of the week that I really look forward to as I get to spend this time with all of you. I have a number of topics that I want to share with you today, and I also want to open it up to your questions, as well as to get to the emails that you have sent to me that I have not yet answered. There are a number of topics that are floating across my desk of news that I think that we should be paying attention to. You may be like me where you get different emails with interesting topics or stories to read or links to check out, and you save them for when you have more time to sit down and actually read them. Well, my list has grown, and as I was clearing my inbox, I came across a few things that I thought would be of interest to you. Like this whole huge issue of cyberbullying. It seems to have hit an all-time high, or really a low, as the case may be. It doesn't matter who the person is these days, but everyone seems to be a potential target for others to give their opinion and let her rip. It's like there's no holds barred, and people are saying absolutely horrible things to each other just because they can. But just because we all have the right to speak up and express ourselves doesn't necessarily mean that it is right to do so, especially with anonymity. Do people not have filters anymore? What happened to manners or tact? I was reading about actress Ashley Judd, just the latest in a slew of stories, who's getting bombarded with negative, threatening tweets from other internet users, all for making a personal comment of her personal support of a basketball team of all things. Really, is this what we're coming down to, is that no one can express a difference of opinion without getting condemned or shamed or threatened with sexual violence by someone who disagrees? This social media has become a place of rampant abuse. What I often remind others of is something from the book, The 4 Agreements. You mustn't take other people's criticism personally. Even though it may be directed at you, it is not about you. Whatever someone else is saying, whatever they're doing or thinking, it tells you the story about them and their internal world. It doesn't and cannot tell you the story about yourself. If someone chooses to act in a negative way, it's because they're negative. If they choose to act in a hurtful way, it's because they're hurting. Yes, it is true that whatever someone else is saying, it has more to do with who they are than it will ever have anything to say about who you are. But what bothers me so much about this incident is how indicative it is of the direction this country seems to be taking. We used to be more tolerant, more accepting as a society. Yes, there has always been prejudices and stereotypes, but for the most part, we could come together and agree to disagree, or work together to find a compromise for the greater good, whether it was in politics or in a school classroom. Our country went to war in foreign countries to help others stand for democracy and retain the right to be different and to accept the differences between them. But my concern today is our inability to accept any differences between us. The new battle cry seems to be, if you're not like me, then you are against me. Well, this is not who we have been in the past, but sadly, we are becoming the land of the people who cannot tolerate the differences that used to make us all so unique. If you have any thoughts or comments, by all means, give me a call at 805-564-1290, or you can email me at drkim@drkimtaylorshow.com. So come on back after the break. I have lots more to talk about. I'm Dr. Kim Taylor, and you're listening to KZSB AM 1290.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
Welcome back to the program. We're going to take a phone call now from Jenny. Hi, Jenny.
Hello, Dr. Kim. As I was listening just now to your opening remarks on cyberbullying and the effects from lack of respect for one another, it's impossible not to include what is happening to our planet, to the animals being slaughtered to extinction, and the awful problems of people caught in wars. And the thing I wanted to mention to you is that often I find myself distracted by all these events and I can't possibly change or help. And I'm making wrong decisions in my everyday life because I'm feeling distracted constantly by all of this.
Well, let me ask you a couple questions. When you say that you're feeling so distracted, it sounds like you're getting rather overwhelmed by the amount or the degree to which there is negative news out there.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And I'm not the only one.
No, I'm sure you're not, because I think that we all are, and we're so inundated these days with it, just that we listen to it all the time. It's in every moment that we have a break, we're checking in, we're checking in the news, we're checking in with social media. So yes, it's very hard to kind of get away from it. So maybe we should ask you, what are the things that you do to actually give yourself a break when you do feel overwhelmed?
I'm not doing anything apparently at this time because it is a bit of a problem to get away. Even the local television stations' news, they announce the weather as an alert. This is not alert-like weather. This is gorgeous weather. Why do we need to have that announcement before the news on the weather even begins?
Well,
weather alert.
Yes, and it's all such breaking news. Yes. Well, I think...
So I'm not having good luck. The thing I probably need to do is turn it all off.
I think that might be a very good idea, because sometimes we do need to take that news break, and we need to do it not because it is for anyone else or not because things will change, but we need to do it to give ourselves a break so that when we feel overwhelmed, we're taking care of ourselves. And this is just one of the ways in which we can do that. And that's as easy as just turning off the TV.
And the radio, yes.
And the radio and the internet.
I actually think I'm going to try that. Maybe just at first to try it for a few days and see how I feel about it.
Well, I think there's one more thing that you can think about also, is that I have a friend of mine who used to teach, and she would sometimes talk about the fact that she was so overwhelmed because she had so many students within her classroom. Sometimes she didn't quite know where to start, that they all had different problems, different needs. And that what she found when she would get overwhelmed is that she would just look at just what was in front of her, what was in her hands that she had the possibility to change, and then work with that. And don't get overwhelmed with everything that needs to be done, but just focus on what's right in front of you. Because when you think about it, if every one of us was just focusing on making the world a better place by just what we were doing in our present moment, we would have a huge shift of
lovely idea too.
Yes, of positive feelings and a lot of positive output. So maybe sometimes when you do get overwhelmed, to just allow yourself to slow down, to check out a little bit, and just do what's in front of you that would make you feel good about yourself.
I'm going to try that, Dr. Kim, and thank you very much. I like your program. I hope you continue.
Thank you, and thank you for your call. Here is another question that crosses my desk. Over the years, I've been asked a number of questions about therapy and how the whole process works, and even why it works. These are all important questions to consider whether you're entering into the process or that you've been in therapy for a while. It can often seem like a mystery to those who have never been in therapy, or if you're expecting a complete change of personality, then the changes may not seem profound enough. But when people first come to therapy, they expect that at the end of it, they'll be fixed. And then they can go forward with the rest of their life healed and in the right mindset, and their work is done. But growing and evolving is a lifetime process, and one we are called upon to do on a continual basis throughout our life. And when you think about it, change happens every moment, whether you want it to or not. And you can either do it in a conscious way or in an unconscious way. What I mean by this is that we can either be proactive in our life or just reactive. But nonetheless, we all need to be able to change and adapt in order to survive. And therapy can certainly help us to see this process more clearly. We all have certain blind spots when it comes to seeing ourselves and how we impact others. And what is true is that we're able to see other people's blind spots, but we have great difficulty seeing our own. So we tend to keep repeating the same dysfunctional pattern over and over again. For example, maybe dating the same kind of guy over and over again, or always trying to change others, or continually picking the wrong career, or trying to please everyone and living in fear of disappointing everyone. So when you enter into therapy, you are beginning a partnership with another person, where you will share your thoughts, feelings, and experiences with someone who can help you to look at them in an objective way, and then reveal the patterns or difficulties that you are having in being true to yourself or in your relationships with other important people in your life. Therapy can also help you deal with negative thoughts and emotions, and it can help you to make positive changes in your life. This is all done with someone that you can trust and who has the experience to help you understand yourself and why you do or think or believe the things that you do, and to help reveal the obstacles that get in your way to having the life that you truly want. I often describe the process of therapy as walking into a tunnel. When you first arrive, you look into the tunnel, and there's no light at the other end. The only reason you're willing to enter the tunnel at all is because where you are is not really working for you, and it's no longer bringing you the results that you want. So with the encouragement of the therapist, you start the journey into the darkness and into the unknown. And this can be both exciting and scary. However, somewhere in the middle of this process, people meet up with their deepest fears, and they become resistant to moving forward. Within the tunnel, they still do not see the light at the other end, but now the scary part is that they no longer see the light in the direction from which they have just come. At this point in time, some people want to turn around and run. They want to go back to what's known, even if it didn't make them happy. They just want to be rid of the anxiety in the quickest way possible. They may even start to complain in therapy or say things like, "This isn't working, this is taking too long." They may start to avoid sessions or come up with excuses. They may even leave therapy altogether without an explanation. But a skilled and experienced therapist will warn clients of this stage of therapy beforehand and prepare them for the feelings that will come in order to help them challenge their resistance and face their fears to continue to move forward towards their stated goals. I always use a favorite quote of mine by Theodore Rothke, which is, "In the darkest time, the eye begins to see." When clients finally surrender and realize there's no turning back, there comes a breakthrough, a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel, and they see how it would look if they were able to change. And the truth is once people see this light for themselves, they don't want to turn back. And they start moving forward and finding their own legs to carry them through. The training wheels come off, they start practicing and trusting themselves, and soon they're able to go it alone without the therapist at their side. And then transformation has occurred. Whether it's a new way of thinking, or replacing old beliefs, or forgiving and letting go of something from the past, the person is now ready to move forward with this new insight and a better understanding about themselves. The best therapy is the kind that provides you the opportunity to understand yourself and to realize your potential as a person who has something to give. Throughout this process, the main question I'm asked is it okay or even normal for a client to get upset or mad at their therapist? Well, you may be surprised at my answer, so stay with me during the break and I'll be right back to answer that question.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
We've been talking about the process of therapy and how it all works. Therapy done right will have a profound effect on your life and really the way that you feel about yourself. It will allow you to make changes that will have you feeling proud about yourself, and it is also going to release you from the fears that have held you back in the past. So a question that I often get asked along the way is it okay if I get mad at my therapist? And I mean really, really mad. And my answer is always the same. Yes, yes, and yes. This is because if your therapist is doing their job right, they will be challenging you and they'll be pushing you to question certain parts of yourself and your whole belief system. When you think about it, a therapist's job is to make you somewhat uncomfortable, because unless you are uncomfortable, you're just not going to change. And I think that human beings are really funny this way, that they will stay doing the same thing, even if they don't like where they're at, simply because at least it's known. When things are unknown, they tend to avoid change at all costs. So in the process of therapy, when you are made to feel uncomfortable, you will want to push back because you want the therapist to do the changing so you don't have to. As this therapy relationship deepens, you will at some point be triggered by your therapist and you'll feel angry or hurt or even annoyed. You may even feel misunderstood or sad. But this is a pivotal moment in your therapy. For whatever's happening in therapy is actually the same thing that happens to you outside of therapy with other people in your life. But being able to work this through in therapy is going to be your time to understand and to gain clarity about what gets in your way of having healthy relationships with others. And it really helps you to learn to kind of move through and create positive resolutions with other people. So when a client gets upset with their therapist in the present, it allows the therapist to see their client's defensive system and all of the really unhealthy emotional reactions. For instance, are you able to speak up and express your feelings? Or do you become silent and withdrawn? Do you put up walls and pretend that everything is okay, but then shut down emotionally and you're unable to hear others? Or do you just get angry? If the client can share their thoughts and feelings with a therapist and explore them openly within the session, then a great deal of insight and learning can take place. And that is going to be what will help you in your relationships with other people. So I always say, don't miss an opportunity to learn from a difficult situation in therapy. Go ahead, tell the therapist you're feeling angry. Tell them you feel like leaving. Get your mad out. And you will be able to really deepen your work together and to move forward in understanding yourself and your own needs and how to express those needs in a healthy and productive way. This might help. Just remember that underneath all anger is always hurt. When you can express your hurt in the moment, you are feeling it in the appropriate amount, and this will set you free. Don't hold on to it. Just trust the process and allow yourself to get a little vulnerable, because what you want is just on the other side of mad. So if you've had some experiences with a therapist that you'd like to talk about, you can certainly give me a call at 805-564-1290 or toll free at 866-564-1290. You can also send me a quick email at drkim@drkimtaylorshow.com. And right now I do have an email that has come in from Kathy. And it's, Dear Dr. Kim, I'm currently in a marriage that I know is not working. My husband is a good worker, but he drinks too much and he is not doing anything to help himself. And the truth is, he does not really see it as a problem. Even though we do not have children, I'm finding it very hard to leave him because I keep hoping that he will get help. I do want a better life, and I know that I would like to have children in the future, but I don't know how long I should wait for him. I am desperate to stay married, but I'm finding it harder and harder to be happy. This is the only relationship that I've ever felt loved, but even that no longer seems to be enough to stay. Yet every time I think about leaving, I find a reason not to. I'm scared to stay, and I'm scared to leave. Kathy. Okay, Kathy, when you say that this is the only relationship that you have ever felt loved, I can really hear how scary it is for you to think about leaving. And to think about leaving means being on your own. But sometimes what happens if you're unable to accept being alone is that you really end up reaching for people who are wrong for you, or that even that you have maybe outgrown. But you do it out of desperation, and then you continue to stay long after you should because you believe it's better than being alone. And the problem with this kind of thinking is that we are never more alone than when we abandon ourselves and continue to stay in relationships or situations that hurt us and do not nourish us. So what I would say to you, Kathy, is that the first thing that you need to realize is that you are alone. You've always been alone. In fact, we are all alone to a certain extent. Even if we've been raised in a good family or we have good friends, we are still alone to grow and to find our own strengths and to develop into who we are meant to be. And this isn't a bad thing, but your desperation to have someone else make you feel better so that you never have to feel this aloneness is actually what's making you very dependent on them to take care of you so that you can feel complete. So, Kathy, I think it's time for you to face yourself, to be willing to grow to just this new level where you can start to believe more in yourself and to trust yourself, to take care of yourself, and to not stay in situations just out of fear and desperation. Okay, we have another email, and I do want to catch up with some of these because I really love the fact that you do send in the emails, and once more, you can send them to me at drkim@drkimtaylorshow.com. This one is from Robert. Dear Dr. Kim, I am 34 years old and finding it hard to be successful at anything that I do. I start out with the best of intentions, but I get distracted or discouraged, and then I just start to lack the motivation to keep going. I've been to therapy, but yes, I quit that too. Surprise, surprise, when it did not help me. It seems that I just get easily discouraged and then overwhelmed when I fail and have to start over. I am at the point of wondering why I should even try again. Robert. Well, Robert, I think what seems to be standing in your way is you. You are afraid that you're not good enough, and if you do succeed, you'll not be able to keep it up, and so you actually are sabotaging yourself as really a way to get yourself off the hook. And what I mean by this is, it's the hook of anxiety. The anxiety around your feelings of feeling inadequate is so overwhelming that rather than challenge yourself and your fears, you give in and you back away. And then, of course, because you give in and back away, you start believing your own story and you stop believing in yourself. So, Robert, what you have to realize is that only the people who have to struggle and have to fight for what they want are able to make the accomplishments that you say that you want to make. You're probably thinking that because you have to work at something and that it doesn't come that easily to you, that it means that you're not good at it. But that's not true. Perhaps in therapy you could explore where those beliefs came from, but what I would say to you is what I think is more important is that you have to learn to challenge yourself. And instead of letting your fear stop you, that you use it to really push you forward. The problem is that you've never really committed to anything because you're afraid that you will ultimately find yourself lacking. And that this is a really hard thing to admit to yourself, that you actually have areas in your life in which you still need to grow. So allow yourself to not have to be perfect. Just allow yourself to be human and simply pick up each day wherever you left off the day before and continue on your path. Be willing to learn, be willing to grow, and stop needing it to be easy. When we kind of track our progress and hold ourselves accountable, we can move forward. And we actually find our best self by digging deeper and overcoming our fears. So your task right now, Robert, is to follow your heart, but to go ahead and do it scared. I'm Dr. Kim Taylor, and I'll be right back after these messages.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
Welcome back to the program. I am now here with Kelly Dowdle. She is from CRC Health Group, which they have become a loyal advertiser on my show. But Kelly is a treatment placement specialist. And for anyone who needs to go into a treatment center or needs to find some help with their addiction, either for themselves or for a loved one, Kelly would be the person to call because she can be there to answer all of your questions and to kind of walk you through that process. So, Kelly, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Could you kind of start out and just tell us, if someone were to call you up, can you walk us through what you would do after they made that first call to you in search of a treatment center?
Absolutely. So here on the Central Coast, I am, as you mentioned, a treatment placement specialist. And part of what I have the capability of doing is being a free resource to families to not only educate them on what treatment looks like for addiction or mood disorders or trauma or anything that they're needing a higher level of care for, educating them on that component and then helping them with their financial piece. So looking at insurance and looking at any financial means that they have and then finding the appropriate clinical program for that loved one. So I kind of do from point A all the way to Z. I not only help educate and facilitate, but I help actually place the person specifically where they should be going.
Okay, because this, of course, is one of the things that they really need to know is what type of treatment that they need to get into, and then also what kind of treatment center would match with that. So do you just work with treatment centers within the state of California or just in the county, or is it broader than that?
All over the country. So depending upon what the person is struggling with, I get a lot of phone calls and people are just kind of curious what addiction looks like and how much is too much, or they are concerned about a loved one. So even just being that free resource to be able to talk them through, just different solutions and ideas and try to just give them that education piece. So really, somebody might ask about how much is too much alcohol, or I'm concerned that my loved one is, severely depressed and, we want to look at some options. So, whether it's an inpatient program, obviously being a more acute case of either addiction or mood disorder, but also just local programs. How can I facilitate giving you any support to get to meetings? What is 12-step meetings? What are those about? We have Cottage Hospital, which is a local program. If you need, if you have psychiatric concerns about somebody, to just call me. And so that's kind of the hope, is that I can just be there to kind of be that instrumental voice for them just to get them to the next place.
Okay, so you can go through with them different kinds of treatment centers and tell them what they offer and let them know what a day in the life of being in a treatment center would look like, things like that, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
Okay, so what would happen if someone really needs to go into treatment and the family all agrees that someone does, but they're having difficulty getting that person to admit it? Can you help them with any kind of intervention?
Absolutely. I do it all the time. So a lot of times, obviously, there's some level of resistance as to kind of facing the truth and getting the help that somebody needs. So I will actually help the family find an interventionist, and we will set it all up, and they will usually do a first visit with the family, and then we can facilitate that intervention for that loved one and intervene and get them appropriately placed into whatever program that they need. So part of the process on my end is not only looking at the clinical piece and what the next steps are, but also looking at the financial piece and meeting the family where they're at and getting them to obviously the best level of care that they can get to.
So what I know that often gets in the way is that people are very reluctant to really ask for help because they're thinking that it's a sign of weakness or that they should be able to do this on their own. So is there anything that you can help with them, or how do you really address this with the people who are, faced with the problem that they really do need to get help, but they're afraid to take that first step?
Yeah, I get that quite a bit, and I think one beautiful thing about this resource that I do provide is that every conversation is completely confidential, and I really just do my best to meet the client or the loved one where they're at, and really just kind of work towards the ultimate goal of that person or that loved one. So whether it's just educating them on whatever they're struggling with, once again mentioning local groups or local resources as far as where it's a safe place to go for them to start the recovery process. Everything is between me, them, and the wall. So I really try to keep that confidentiality piece very, very private, but also, once again, giving them the resources and the education. So I'm always happy to meet that person where they're at. And, I am here on the Central Coast, so if they felt more, comfortable talking and doing like a consult, offline or even meeting in person, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Okay, great. So you actually travel a bit and go to them.
Correct.
Okay, great. With all of the work that you've done in it, what are people most afraid of?
I think people are most afraid of facing the truth and intervening on somebody that you love. I think can be incredibly heartbreaking. And so with that, I encourage them to attend a CODA meeting, which is for codependency, going to Al-Anon meetings, getting very strong and educating themselves on, what that looks like and what an addict really looks like and lives and breathes on a daily basis. I think it's empowering. As we know, education is key, and, power and equals knowledge, and knowledge equals power. So I think just really being able to educate that person on not only taking care of themselves, but ultimately helping somebody to survive this really nasty disease that has taken so many people's lives. So, I think it's taking the first step. I always tell people, they're so courageous just to even make the phone call. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I can, usually have them lean into me and trust me as far as just being just a voice over the phone that's going to just kind of guide them to the right place. So, there are no such thing as any dumb questions or, to be afraid is normal, but it's kind of the first step to freeing the soul and getting the help that they deserve and need. So I encourage everybody to call and to ask questions and just to even explore the opportunities of creating change for yourself and potentially saving someone's life.
Perfect. So how can people contact you directly?
You can contact me. My local number is 805-242-3860. Once again, it's 805-242-3860.
Kelly, thank you very much for being on the program. I will definitely put your contact information on my website also. So clearing up some more things that have come across my desk. There's a new book that has caught my eye. It's called The Power of No. It's by James and Claudia Altucher. Hopefully, I will enlist the authors to come on my show to talk about their new book, and hopefully they won't say no. But this is a topic that is so important in being able to lead the kind of life that you want, instead of always trying to make everyone else happy. Because if you can't say no to all of the distractions or all of the demands of other people, then you're not going to be able to focus on the more important things that make you happy and that really kind of feed your soul. The subtitle of their book is Because One Little Word Can Bring You Health, Abundance, and Happiness. This is so true. Yes, it's sometimes hard to say no, but it's so worth the effort. The authors go on to describe that we all have the right to defend our life, to have healthy relationships, to use our talents and gifts as we choose, to ask for what we need, and in fact, you have the right to be yourself. But what you have to do, and the ticket in, is you first have to believe this to be true and to be able to act on it and go about finding your own voice and setting the boundaries or limits with others so that you can be happy. Now, within the work that I do in my own therapy room, one of the things my clients often hear me say is, you have to own your yes and own your no. In order to be who you are meant to be in this lifetime, and not just a version that everyone else needs you to be, then you have to be able to have the guts to say no and risk disappointing others. And if you don't own this, and if you don't hold yourself accountable, then other people will use you, they'll manipulate you for their own needs, and they'll do it just because they can. Furthermore, no one will really be able to trust you that when you say yes to something, that you really mean it. So if you can't say no, then your yes is always in question too. Think about that. All right, so there's something else here that came across my desk that I wanted to share. And I listened to a lot of the TED Talks. A man who's on there, his name is Stan Gilbert. He spoke about the surprise science of happiness. And he talked about this connection between happiness and gratefulness. So what he found is that, well, many people can look like they have everything and that there's everything going for them. He found that they oftentimes are still unhappy. Whereas those who had very little, that they were happy. So his question was really, what gives? How come this happens this way? And what he realized is that if you are able to take every moment and see it as a gift and use it as an opportunity to learn, to evolve, and to elevate yourself, then you can find a way to be grateful for what is. And this is what will make you happy. Because if you're grateful, he says, then you're not in fear. You create no violence. You are joyful. You feel like you're enough. And you can find peace. And he found it is all about perspective and how you choose to hold each moment. So that's just some food for thought. You know, I found it fascinating that we do choose whether or not we're happy, and we have to choose it in every single moment. Okay, something else that has come across my desk that is really very near and dear to my own heart. It is a story about a teenage girl who has taken up the cause of teen dating violence. And this all came about because of her own experience about being abused. So now she's using her voice to be able to help others. And I love this kind of story. It was a number of years ago now when I did my dissertation in college that I co-wrote and produced a video called Teen Dating Violence, The Hidden Secret. It was all about dating violence and what was happening within our schools that nobody was talking about at that time. It was later sold and distributed throughout the United States to middle schools and high schools in order to help educate and help in the prevention of dating violence. I met so many kids who didn't know that what was happening to them was actually violence. So today there's a great website called laurashouse.org, and they are dedicated to the prevention and treatment of dating abuse. They offer free programs for students to address this widespread issue. And I really like the fact that they have a challenge that you can take. And they want you to take a pledge to never engage in any type of abuse, to respect and value your partner, and to speak up if you witness abuse and not be a bystander. So I really encourage you to check out this website if you or someone you love is involved in any type of dating violence. It's laurashouse.org. All right, so I have one more note here. It's from positiveprescription.com, and they're talking about the upside of failing. The article highlights Sarah Blakely, who, if you don't know her, she's the one who founded Spanx, and we all know that women will know who this is. But without any prior retail experience, she jumped into this process. And what she talks about is how she learned from the parenting style of her own parents, because they always asked her and her siblings what they had failed at each day. They were more interested in what they had tried rather than what they had conquered. So their approach was, if you're not failing, you're not growing. Now, this is quite the opposite of what most parents teach, which is to always know the answers, and if you're struggling, that it's kind of a bad sign because things might get worse. So it's no wonder that so many of us view failure as something that we should try to avoid at all costs, when in reality, it is what helps us grow and to learn and to develop new skills. And it gives us the ability to be really creative and to reach for the stars. So my challenge to you is this: face your fears. Do something every day that scares you. And guess what? After a while, the fears will start to lose their ability to have any power over you. And by focusing just on the challenge in front of you and not on the whole outcome, you will be able to reach your goals. But you have to be willing to learn from your mistakes rather than being paralyzed by them. All right, I'm going to take a quick break here now, and when I come back, I'll just have some closing comments for you. Stay with me.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
Well, that's my program for today. You know, there's always so much to talk about, and you can be sure that we'll be doing just that when I'm back here with you again next week. If you missed any part of this show, you can listen to the rebroadcast Thursday evenings at 10 p.m. and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. right here at KZSB AM 1290. You can also find my past shows by going to iTunes and downloading the free weekly podcasts, or you can now find them on my YouTube channel. Just go to my website for the links at drkimtaylorshow.com. And of course, I love hearing from you, so send me your comments, your questions to me at drkim@drkimtaylorshow.com. I want to thank my engineer, Mark Giles, for helping me today, and the behind-the-scenes engineer, Richard Dugan. So be well until next week, when I'll be right back with you here at 5 o'clock, just as I am every Thursday afternoon. And next week, my guest is Robert Wise. He is a leading expert in the field of sexual addiction, and he's going to be sharing his new book, Always Turned On. I'm Dr. Kim Taylor. Until then, remember, nobody else has to change in order for you to feel better. So stop waiting for others. Be willing to change your life by being the change you want to create today. I know you can do it. Take good care until next time.